What if the person who broke your trust most completely was not a stranger, not a colleague, not an ex-I, but someone in your own family? What if the wound that has followed you for years, the one that shows up in how you love, how you trust, how you protect yourself, did not come from the world outside? What if it came from the dinner table? Because here is what I know from everything I have learned about human connection and vulnerability. Family betrayal does not just break a relationship, it breaks something inside your understanding of what it means to be safe in the world. And most people are walking around carrying that wound completely alone, performing fine, performing healed, performing forgiveness they have not actually found. If that is you, I need you to stay with me. Because in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact truth about what happens inside you after family betrayal. The anger you were told to skip, the grief you never gave yourself permission to feel, the walls that are protecting you and slowly suffocating you at the same time, and most importantly, what real healing actually looks like. Not the performed version, not the shortcut, the real one. Stay until the end. What comes next might be the most important thing you hear today. What if the people who were supposed to protect you are the ones who destroyed you? Family betrayal is not just a wound, it is a psychological earthquake. When betrayal comes from a stranger, we grieve and move on. But when it comes from a parent, a sibling, a spouse, or a child, the person whose very existence should have meant safety, something inside us fractures at the deepest level of identity. Because we don't just lose that person. We lose the version of ourselves that trusted them. We lose the home we built inside our hearts. Research in trauma psychology confirms that betrayal from close attachment figures causes longer-lasting damage than betrayal from outsiders. Why? Because our nervous system never prepared for this. It never rehearsed the moment where love and destruction lived in the same body. The shocking truth no one tells you is this: you are not struggling because you are weak. You are struggling because you are deeply bonded. And the deeper the bond, the more devastating the break. Healing does not begin by forgiving them. It begins by understanding that your pain is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you loved completely in a world that was not safe enough to hold that love. What if your anger is not destroying you? It is actually protecting you. Most people are told, forgive and forget, let it go, move on. And here is what that advice does. It shames you for feeling what is completely normal and biologically necessary. After betrayal, anger is not your enemy. Anger is the fire alarm going off inside your body, screaming that a boundary was violated, that you deserved better, that what happened to you was wrong. In fact, suppressing that anger does not make it disappear, it drives it underground, where it turns into depression, chronic illness, and self-destruction. The shocking reality is that societies train us, especially women, especially people raised in religious or traditional homes, to perform forgiveness before they have actually healed. They skip the anger, skip the grief, skip the confrontation with truth, and then they wonder why they keep attracting the same people, the same betrayals, the same pain over and over again. Real healing demands that you let yourself be furious, not forever, but fully. Because when you honor your anger, you are not choosing bitterness. You are choosing yourself. You are saying, I mattered. What happened to me mattered, and I will not pretend otherwise. What if the story you keep telling yourself about what happened is the real prison, not the betrayal itself? The human brain does something terrifying after trauma. It builds a narrative, and in that narrative, you are either the helpless victim or the one who should have known better. Both of those stories are lies, but they are comfortable lies because they give us the illusion of control. If it was your fault, you could have stopped it. If you are powerless, then you never had to risk trusting again. Neither story sets you free. In the field of resilience research, there is a striking finding. People who recover fastest from betrayal are not the ones who forgive the quickest. They are the ones who rewrite the story, not to excuse what happened, not to minimize the damage, but to reclaim authorship of their own lives. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What does this experience reveal about my strength, my values, my future?" This shift from victim to narrator is not a denial of pain. It is the single most courageous act a human being can perform, because it means you are no longer waiting for the person who hurt you to give you permission to heal. What if vulnerability is not the thing that got you hurt? It is actually the only thing that can save you. After betrayal, the logical conclusion of your brain is never trust again. Build walls, stay guarded, protect yourself at all costs. And for a season, those walls are necessary. They are survival. But here is what no one warns you about. Walls do not discriminate. They keep out the people who hurt you, and they keep out the people who could heal you. The great research on human connection shows something uncomfortable. People who shut down vulnerability after betrayal do not just stop being hurt. They stop being alive in any meaningful way. They stop experiencing joy, intimacy, awe, love, because you cannot selectively numb. You cannot block pain without also blocking everything beautiful that makes life worth living. The path back is not trusting everyone. It is learning to be discerning, to slowly, carefully, intentionally offer vulnerability to people who have earned it. This is not naivety. This is radical courage. Because after someone has broken your trust, choosing to trust again, not blindly, but wisely, is perhaps the most defiant, powerful, life-affirming choice you will ever make. What if you were never looking for healing? What you were actually looking for was permission to grieve. We live in a culture obsessed with moving on, with being strong, with posting our glow up before we have finished crying. And so after family betrayal, one of the most complex forms of grief a human being can experience, we rush to healing without ever truly grieving. Here is the shocking truth. Grief and healing are not sequential. They are simultaneous. You do not finish grieving and then heal. You heal through grieving. Grieving is not weakness. Grieving is how the body processes the loss of what was real, the family dinners, the phone calls, the belief that this person would always choose you. When that is gone, you do not just lose a relationship. You lose a future. You lose memories that now have to be reinterpreted. You lose a version of your past self that trusted completely. That is an extraordinary amount of loss, and it deserves an extraordinary amount of grief. The moment you give yourself permission to feel the full weight of what was taken from you, without rushing, without performing, without apologizing, that is the moment the healing actually begins. Not because the pain disappears, because you are finally telling the truth about it. What if forgiveness was never about them? It was always about setting yourself free. This is the most misunderstood concept in all of human psychology: forgiveness. We have been taught that forgiveness is a gift we give to the person who hurt us, that it requires reconciliation, that it means what they did was acceptable. All of that is wrong. True forgiveness, the kind that actually heals, is a private act of liberation. It is the moment you decide that this person no longer gets to live rent-free in your nervous system. It is the moment you choose your own peace over your justified rage. And here is what makes it even more radical. You can forgive someone and still never speak to them again. You can forgive someone and still hold them completely accountable. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself from their presence. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. It does not require an apology. It does not require their acknowledgement. It only requires one decision. I refuse to carry the weight of what you did into the rest of my life. That decision does not happen once. It happens every morning when you wake up and choose your own freedom over your grief. And every single time you make that choice, you become more of who you were always meant to be. What if the deepest wound you will ever carry was given to you by the person who was supposed to love you the most? Sit with that for a moment. because most people who come to a talk about betrayal are carrying something they have never said out loud, something that lives in the space between who they were before and who they became after. A moment, a conversation, a discovery, a silence where an apology should have been. Family betrayal is unlike any other form of human pain. When a stranger betrays you, the world feels unsafe. But when family betrays you, a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a child, the very foundation of who you believed yourself to be begins to crack because you did not just trust that person. You built yourself around that trust. And now here you are. Maybe it happened years ago. Maybe it happened last week. Maybe it is still happening and you have not yet found the words to name it. Whatever it is, I want to say something to you right now that no one around you has probably said clearly enough. What happened to you was real. The pain you are carrying is not a weakness. And you are not broken. You are actually one of the bravest kinds of people on this planet. Someone who loved completely in a world that was not safe enough to hold that love. Let me talk about anger first, because most people are taught to skip it. You were told to forgive, to pray it away, to be the bigger person, to move on, and every time you heard that advice, something inside you went quiet, not because you agreed, but because you had no permission to disagree. Here is what the research actually tells us. Anger after betrayal is not your problem. It is your protection. Your anger is your nervous system's way of recording the truth of what happened. It is your soul's refusal to call wrong things right. And when you suppress it, when you perform forgiveness before you have actually healed, you do not release the pain. You bury it alive. And buried pain does not stay buried. It shows up as chronic illness, as depression that cannot explain itself, as relationships where you keep choosing the same people, the same patterns, the same betrayals, wondering why history keeps repeating. Your anger deserves to be honored, not performed for others, not weaponized, but honored as evidence that you mattered, that the relationship mattered, and that what was done to you was wrong. Now, here is the harder conversation. After the anger, there is the story. Every one of us, after betrayal, builds a narrative in our minds. And that narrative is almost always one of two things. It was my fault or I am helpless. Both of those stories are traps. The "it was my fault" story gives us the illusion of control. If we caused it, we could have prevented it. And if we could have prevented it, maybe we can prevent it from ever happening again. The mind will accept shame over powerlessness almost every time. And the "I am helpless" story, that one gives us permission to never try again, never trust again, never be seen again. Neither story will set you free. The people who heal, truly heal, are the people who learn to rewrite the story, not to erase what happened, not to excuse the person who hurt them, but to look at the whole experience and ask a different question. Not "why did this happen to me?" but "what does this reveal about my strength, about what I value, about who I am becoming?" That shift from victim to narrator of your own life is not a denial of pain. It is the most courageous act of your lifetime. Let's talk about the walls. After someone in your family betrays you, the most logical response in the world is to stop being vulnerable, to close yourself off, to decide that trust is a luxury you can no longer afford. And I want to say clearly, for a season, those walls are absolutely necessary. They are survival. They are your nervous system doing exactly what it is supposed to do. But walls have no memory. They cannot tell the difference between the person who hurt you and the person who is trying to heal you. And here is the most difficult truth about closing yourself off. You cannot selectively numb. When you shut down the capacity to feel pain, you also shut down the capacity to feel joy, wonder, intimacy, love. You do not get to keep the good feelings while blocking the bad ones. They come from the same place. The path back to full aliveness is not to trust everyone. It is to learn discernment, to understand the difference between vulnerability offered to anyone, which is not courage, it is compulsion, and vulnerability offered slowly, intentionally, to people who have earned it through consistency, through accountability, through showing up. This is not naivety. This is the most powerful, defiant act of recovery available to you. But before any of that can happen, you have to grieve. This is the part our culture absolutely refuses to make space for. We live in a world that wants the glow up without the breakdown, the comeback without the collapse. We are so obsessed with being strong that we have become terrified of being honest. Grief after family betrayal is extraordinarily complex because you are not just grieving the person, you are grieving the version of the future you believed was coming. The holiday dinners, the phone calls, the moments when you thought, at least I have them. You are grieving a version of your past because memories you once held as sacred now have to be reinterpreted in the cold light of what you now know. And you are grieving a version of yourself, the one who trusted so completely, the one who did not see it coming, the one who believed that love was a two-way promise. That is an enormous amount of loss, and it deserves an enormous amount of time. Give yourself permission to not be okay. Give yourself permission to grieve on days when everyone else thinks you should be over it. Because the moment you stop performing recovery and start actually feeling it, that is the moment healing stops being a concept and starts being real. And then, when you are ready, comes the question of forgiveness. I want to be extremely careful here, because forgiveness is the most misunderstood concept in the entire landscape of human healing. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. It does not require their apology. It does not mean what they did was acceptable. It does not require you to ever speak to them again. It does not even require them to know it happened. True forgiveness is a private act of liberation. It is the moment you make a decision, not for them, but for yourself, that this person will no longer determine the temperature of your nervous system, that their choices will no longer write the story of your future, that you are taking back the authorship of your own life. And here is the profound truth about forgiveness that no one says. It does not happen once. It is not a destination. It is a daily choice. Every morning when you wake up and the grief is still there and you choose your freedom anyway. Every time the memory surfaces and you let it pass without letting it possess you. Every time you choose the life ahead of you over the wound behind you. That is forgiveness. Not a performance, not a gift to them, a revolution in you. You came here today because something happened to you that should not have happened. You loved someone who did not honor that love. You trusted someone who used that trust against you. You gave a piece of yourself to someone who did not deserve it, and you have been carrying that ever since. Here is what I want you to leave with. Your pain is not your identity. Your betrayal is not your destiny. The fact that you are still here, still searching, still asking, still trying is not weakness. That is evidence of a spirit that has not been broken, that has been tested painfully, profoundly, but not broken. Healing is not a straight line. There will be days when you feel free and days when it hits you like it is brand new. There will be moments of clarity and moments of complete collapse. All of that is part of it. All of that is real. All of that is allowed. But I want you to know this. On the other side of this, if you do the work, if you honor the anger, if you grieve without apology, if you slowly, carefully allow yourself to be seen again, on the other side of this is not just survival. On the other side of this is a version of you that is more real, more grounded, more deeply human than you have ever been. Because you will have learned something that no classroom can teach, that you can be broken open and still choose love, that you can be betrayed and still build trust, that the worst thing that was done to you does not have the final word about who you are. That is your power. Reclaim it.